Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am delighted to be back in Bangkok. I am delighted to lend my support to the Sustainable Brands movement, not only here, but globally, as I'm learning about it. Before I share with you some thoughts about the SDGs and purpose, I would like to echo P. Nui's thoughts earlier. I've been thinking about His Majesty. I had lunch with someone at Sirirat yesterday. As some of you may know, my father in the 1960s was a good friend of His Majesty's. My father was the American ambassador here in Thailand, and he and His Majesty were quite close. And I remember my dad describing his respect and admiration for His Majesty as a man of purpose. So when I heard P. Nui remind us of what our purpose should be, particularly those of us who are Thai, who have the destiny of Thailand in our hands, I was thinking this concept of purpose, as it is being presented to us today, and particularly by Her Royal Highness, applies to His Majesty. He was a man of purpose. I feel he took his coronation oath terribly seriously to bring about the happiness of the Thai people. I was privileged once, a long time ago, 1984 actually, to have a long private audience with His Majesty, which was sort of a tutorial of me by His Majesty on his thinking and his concern and his worries for his people in Thailand. And his purpose was so clear, to use whatever talents and abilities he might have for the happiness of the Thai people. And exactly as Her Royal Highness was telling us today, His Majesty understood that happiness must have a moral, ethical, religious, if you will, foundation. Happiness cannot come from just making profit, just being rich. And he was worried then, long before other people, that if you have a culture where you can buy bun, where you can buy barami, then you have a difficult situation and you will probably not be happy. Because money, as we Americans say, really cannot buy happiness. And that goes back to great thinkers like Aristotle and things like that on our side. So I was asked to relate to this notion of a higher purpose to the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. The 17 SDGs provide purpose. They're a list of 17 purposes, very straightforward. The only purpose of the SDGs is to provide purpose. What are we supposed to do in the world by 2030? Thus, they make the business problem of this session easy to solve. You have a business, you want to find a purpose, look to the SDGs. It's not a problem. The process of developing the SDGs has already done the heavy lifting in providing business with ideals which resonate with consumers all around the world, as we just heard from the previous speaker. So the SDGs are, as we Americans say, they're like motherhood and apple pie, right? Who can be against them? Now, I want to make the point a little more seriously, and we have the honor to hear from Pra-Anil later today on this. The SDGs align with our human aspirations, with Catholic social teachings, with Quranic guidance, with Shinto and Zen, with Buddhist, the Buddhist middle path, and Confucian propriety and the doctrine of the mean. Let me briefly substantiate my statement. Catholic social teachings, as recently reflected in Pope Francis's encyclical Laudato Si, call upon us not only to care for nature, but to care for one another. We have a destiny as humans, he says, not to play God with the earth or with each other, but to sustain the miracle of life for all. For Protestant Christians, there is the theological concept of common grace, a respectful awareness that God created for all of us out of His grace, a home and opportunities in this life to seek and enjoy goodness. We are thus beneficiaries of God's grace, and we are not spoiled children entitled to belittle and disparage what we have been given. The Quran points us towards the understanding that God created men and women alike as His Khalifa, or stewards, in the earth to care for the earth and make it prosper. The SDGs can be understood in a Quranic context as standards by which we should measure how well we carry out our Khalifaship obligations. Now, Japanese Shinto and Zen beliefs, they subordinate our human ego, which is prone to the exploitation of other people and of nature, to pureness of intention and openness of mind to nature and worldly realities. The middle path of Theravada Buddhism, supported by the Noble Eightfold Way as we walk through life, keeps us on the course of sustainability and good risk management while developing our own talents and abilities. The Dharma can be understood as the road to permanent sustainability. It sustains living. In the Confucian ethical tradition, we serve in various offices. The phrase from the Analects is Jun Jun Quan Quan Tu Tu Fu Fu. You're a lord, you're a minister, you're a father, you're a son, you're a mother, you're a daughter, you're a farmer, you're a manager, you're a teacher. You have responsibilities. And thus, our minds and our hearts should be directed towards making constructive contributions to those who depend on our being good in what we do. If you're a father, you're supposed to be a good father. If you're a mother, you're supposed to be a good mother. If you're a teacher, like my colleague Kun Nik, you're supposed to be a good teacher. The Chinese text, not often read, the Doctrine of the Mean, argues for an approach to living also of sustainable development, risk management, in avoiding extremes of selfishness and arrogance, stupidity and carelessness. The SDGs relate to all these traditions. They point towards general prosperity and well-being. They are a common focal point for all people in all religions. And they were adopted, as we were told by Alan, by all the nations of the world. All the governments of the world stand behind these goals. So, if your business, or if you are advising a business, if you truly want to help achieve one of these sustainable goals, or more than one, or even just part of one, you're already ahead of the curve in being a purposeful business. So my argument to you today is basically it's easy. Study the SDGs, apply them to your business as it is or as it might be, and you will have a good sense of purpose, which will achieve the advantages that have been mentioned. Let me consider some aspects of the SDGs. How do they relate to a business? Okay. Helping people lower the cost of goods and services. That helps achieve SDG 1, eliminating poverty, right? Helping people live healthier lives. Promoting their well-being. Helping them gain more education. Giving them employment. Contributing to their having more secure and sustainable access to healthy food. Helping them, helping them use less energy or use renewable energy. Creating for them more sustainable transportation and hospitality venues. Providing girls and women with more opportunity and dignity. Providing people with better and more efficient housing and more sustainable urban environments, the green area here in Bangkok, et cetera, et cetera. Now, as you may know, the 17 SDGs come with 169 sub-goals. I think any business can find something in 169 sub-goals that you can say, our business, my business, is helping achieve these goals. And therefore, my business has a purpose which relates to the general happiness of humanity. Okay, there are two tools which can help business. I'll just mention them briefly. One is a little questionnaire that we at the Co-Roundtable have developed, and anybody who's interested here can talk to my colleagues, Kun Nik or Alex or Kun Pan. You ask questions about your different stakeholders. So sample questions would be like, what do my customers want? Actually, we had some examples from PTT just now. What do the customers want? What can we do? How, are we meeting the needs? Employees, you ask yourself a bunch of questions. You answer the questions. That will then give you strategic insights into how your business can align with your stakeholders. Now, the next thing is I want to talk very briefly about something called the SDG Compass. This is a little intellectual exercise that you can find on the internet, which was put together by the Global Compact of the United Nations, the World Business Council of Sustainable Development. Paul Polman was involved in that, which basically says step one is to read the SDGs. Not hard. Step two is to sort of select priorities. What is there in the SDGs that you think is important or close to you or related to your business? Step three is to set some goals for your company. A very ordinary process of being reasonable and rational in linking up aspirations to goals. And then step four is to fit the goals into the day-to-day operations of your company. Set some KPIs, and step five is to report. What I'd like to do very briefly, I just have some data. This data comes from Yahoo Y charts on companies. It's dated as of mid-September, a month ago. And the point I want to make here is about goodwill and brand equity and why purpose makes a difference. Where do you see purpose show up on the financial statements of an enterprise? So let's start with 3M, a company in Minnesota where I live. Oh, and by the way, a big parenthesis, I don't want to argue that stock market prices are the best way to evaluate a company. I'm just using these numbers as sort of a more narrow point. So the market value of 3M was $106 billion. If, and those of you who are in business, you may know that, if you use your own analysis, discounted cash flow, you get $116 billion. The stock equity of 3M is only $11 billion. The difference between $11 billion and $106 billion, roughly $100 billion, is goodwill. So the idea is that if you bought 3M for this amount of money, and you sold the company and you paid all the debts, you'd only end up with $11 billion. So $100 billion worth of perceived value is immaterial. It's expectations of people that the company has value, will do good in the future. So you can see General Motors' market value is down. They don't give a lot of goodwill to General Motors. Its purpose is in question, right? If you do a financial analysis, you can get a much higher value. Stock equity is about the same as the market value. Interestingly, in the analysis, let's take Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs is selling in the marketplace for less than its book equity. People don't have a lot of confidence in Goldman Sachs. They don't sense it has an inspiring purpose. And the outside analysis, when they evaluate Goldman Sachs, they come up with a huge negative number. Outsiders are basically have a red flag warning that the business model of Goldman Sachs is not sustainable. And JP Morgan is also negative. If you look at Google, or the best one I think maybe is Facebook. What is Facebook? Right? Where's the value of Facebook? What's the purpose of Facebook? It's supposed to bring us all together and create community. Facebook's net equity is $44 billion. Market cap is $370 billion. A huge amount of goodwill. Close with a reference to Jim Stengel. Jim Stengel was the marketing director for P&G for about 10 years, and his ideal is that if a company aligns with an ideal, it will do better. And so he found 50 companies which he felt lined up with ideals, and he measured their stock market performance. And so from 2000 to 2011, his companies performed like this. This is the big drop with the Great Recession. They grew by 382.3%, and the S&P 500 was down 7%. So if you had a company with real purpose, you would do better in the stock market. I think your alignment with the SDGs will give you leadership. Leadership is how you find value and values which you can relate to your operations. Having leadership allows you to set KPIs which will carry you forward with high purpose and will permit internal organizational coherence and fluid external reporting. If you get this right, the marketing piece, I suggest to you, is pretty simple. But you should not market anything that you're not going to deliver. Because ultimately, if you don't walk the talk, you will be exposed. Take the case of Volkswagen. Billions and billions of dollars of owners' equity are lost because they did not walk their talk. But I think if you find the vision related to the SDGs, you organize for it, you motivate your workforce, you deliver to your customers, you will have higher brand value equity, and you will have a very successful company. Thank you so much.